When you turn in your homeworks in Math 9, you're always going to turn them in as a file called an M file. So that means the file name ends in .m. And there are two different types of M files. There are function M files, which are the more difficult but also more important ones, and then there are script M files. So let me start with the easier one, with the script M files. So let's look at what I have here in the command window. I've defined A to be 100, B to be A minus 7, and C to be A times B. So those are some variables. The later variables are dependent on the previous variables. And imagine I've decided that, I didn't define A correctly. What if I want A to be 10 instead of A equals 100? Okay, so I do A equals 10. Okay, good enough. But that hasn't changed B, and it hasn't changed C. So if I want to also define those to be dependent on this new value of A, then I have to redo them. I have to redo B equals A minus 7 and redo C equals A times B. And a script is a way that's going to save us a lot of work. Like, it would be nice if up here I could edit this A equals 100 to A equals 10. Okay, but I tried hitting delete up there and it didn't work. So if you ever have a sequence of commands, and as we do more complicated things, you might have a very long sequence of commands, then it's better to do it inside a script, so that if you make a mistake in one, it's easy to correct without having to also redo the later commands. So let me make a script, and the file that I saved, the M file, it's going to be saved over here in the current folder. So I can either click this button up here for new script, or I can click here on new and choose script. Later on, we're going to choose function. I'll choose script. Okay, now I get this blank text document. And I'm going to write what we had before. A equals 100, B equals A minus 7, C equals A times B. And you can see that just out of reflex, without me even thinking about it, I was putting semicolons at the end of these lines. And that's a really good habit to get into, because let me demonstrate the difference between these. So I have these saved. So I hit Command S on my Apple computer, or let me show you up here, I could click save, and the same thing comes up. Now I can name it anything I want. It's good to name it something that is a little random looking. You don't want the name you save it as to overwrite something that's already built into MATLAB. So let me just call it something like my script. Okay, you wouldn't want to name it something like function, because if you name it that, maybe that's so simple it will erase something else that's already built into MATLAB, and then you'll have lost that until you delete this file. So my script always ends in a .m. That would have happened automatically. And another good habit to get into is to begin scripts with clear. And I'll talk about that a little later. Okay, so just remember that clear deletes all the stored variables. And that there's a very big difference between scripts and functions. When we get to functions, we're never going to have those begin with the word clear. So just a difference to be aware of. So now I'm going to go back to the command window. Let me also clear it here. And now how do I run the script? I run it just by typing in my script. Okay, I typed my script. And now these variables showed back up, 100, 93, 9300. And now what's the advantage? Let me show you the advantage. So scripts are like a way of running a bunch of commands all at once, just by evaluating the single line, which is the name of the script, without the .m at the end. So now let me change it to 10. Okay, just a couple keystrokes. Then I saved it. And now I'm going to run my script again, and pay attention how after I run this, how these numbers here in the workspace, these stored variable names, pay attention to how they all change. Okay, A changed to 10, B changed to 10 minus 7, and C changed to 30. So that's a little introduction to scripts. We'll talk more about them soon. But let me go on to functions. So a function is fairly different. A function is something, it's not just a sequence of commands. It's something that takes inputs, possibly 0 inputs, possibly more than 1 input, and it returns an output, or maybe 0 outputs, or maybe more than 1 output. But I'd say most commonly it will return exactly 1 output for the applications that we do. So let me, as an example, just make a script, make a function. So I went up here to new, then I go to function. And these we have to think a little bit more about names. So what is this syntax? This is all just auto-populated by MATLAB, so I don't have to think about it too much. These things that start with % signs, those are comments, so those you can just write in plain English. Here inside these vector brackets, this indicates what the outputs are. This is the name of the function, and this indicates what the inputs are. So let me call it my function. Let's say it takes as input x, and let's say as output it returns something called y. And let me do a pretty simple example. Let me do y equals x squared. So when I tell it to save, it's very important that you always save it with the same name as what you wrote up here. So this is going to be an M file, just like for scripts. It's going to end in a .m, and the name of the .m file has to be the same as what I wrote here in the text file. Okay, so my only choice is to have it my fun. And if I want to be more explicit, I can put a .m at the end of it, but that would have happened automatically. Okay, I have this saved. Now let me go back to the command window. So let me do my fun of 8. Okay, this input 8, this is like the x in my fun. Then it's going to make y equals 8 squared, and then it's going to return y. So let's see how that works. So here you can see answer is 64, just like we expected.